This is huge news for Australia. Nuclear power is finally back on the table after over 25 years of being banned. It was way back in 1998 that the Greens, who else but that bunch of anti-human extremists, pushed an amendment through the Parliament after less than 10 minutes of debate, relegating Australia to an energy backwater. Despite having the world's largest reserves of uranium, Australia has exported most of it overseas, to countries sensible enough to embrace the zero-emission generation that nuclear power provides. Naturally, the renewable energy rent seekers are wailing at the prospect of reliable baseload generation, scared that their vested interests may be threatened if we stop throwing money at wind and solar. But for anyone with half a brain, and that excludes Chris Bowen, nuclear is the only viable option if we're forced down the path towards net zero. And perhaps, at last, we will see Australia get itself back on track to energy security. Welcome back to MGUY, British engineer and lawyer, now Sydney-based YouTuber. Be sure to follow me on the usual socials for more content, links in the description, and please make sure you're subscribed and have enabled all notifications so you never miss out on any future videos. This decision finally puts clear air between the two major parties here in Australia. Left-wing Labor, that is in bed with the Greens and is pushing wind and solar and has rejected the nuclear option to keep their commie friends happy, and the centre-right Liberals, who are still obsessed with net zero, but who have now made a clear point of difference for the election coming up shortly. As The Australian reports, Peter Dutton has put the energy debate on its axis and radically reshapes the next election. Peter Dutton has just radically reshaped the political contest. He has staked his leadership and the coalition's election prospects on a contest over nuclear power. Anthony Albanese might well be thinking, I can't believe my luck. He's the Labor leader, by the way. But having on Wednesday announced the first phase of the nuclear plan, the 7 regional locations, the Liberal leader has strongly signalled that he too wants a fight with Labor over energy. Dutton has split the climate change debate into a dual question for voters. On one hand, he is seeking a revival of the public debate on realism and ambition. Can Labor meet its climate change targets, and at what cost? No, they can't, and they don't know. On the other, he has wedded the coalition to a nuclear power future. Good. Good for him. This is a stark contrast in policy approach to the energy and climate change problem. And it only took microseconds for our learned Energy Minister Chris Bowen to ridicule the idea. And please try not to laugh when you hear this because it's tough, believe me. Energy and Climate Change Minister Chris Bowen has blasted the coalition's risky nuclear scam during his appearance at the Australians Energy Nation Forum. I hear this said the rest of the world is doing nuclear, he said. Well, actually, the world is adding more renewable capacity every couple of weeks than it is doing in a year in nuclear. It's a furphy to say that the world's moving to nuclear. My objection to nuclear has never been moral. For some people it is, not for me. It is a practical, evidence-based rejection for Australia. Oh my God, that guy. Nothing would ever persuade these rusted-on hacks that nuclear might be better than wind and solar. To anyone with an ounce of common sense or any understanding of energy and engineering, it's painfully obvious. But an idiot like Bowen hasn't got a clue, and like the puppet he is, just says what his Green and Union masters tell him to. If both parties here insist that net zero is going to be the goal, I wish it weren't, and we'll never make it by 2050 without extreme pain. But if it is, then let us at least make the journey a hell of a lot easier with reliable baseload generation, using nuclear power rather than having to rely on expensive, unreliable and unpredictable wind and solar, which would need to be backed up by acres and acres of expensive batteries. It really is as simple as this. If we want any hope of getting to net zero, or even close, there is no other option.